Welcome to the 209 Journey podcast. I'm your host, Luis Urbano, and I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time out of their day to listen to the podcast, to this episode, to past episodes. It's really amazing. I really appreciate everyone who listens to the show. And if you are new to the show, in this show, we actually interview people who were born in the 209, people who have moved to the 209. That's what we're all about here, too. It's all about showcasing what our 209 has to offer and all the amazing stories that are in the area that don't always get as much publicity as they should. So hopefully we can inspire people from outside of the 209 who listen to the show to come visit one of our amazing cities or towns. We really hope to be able to achieve that. And if you are from the 209, hopefully you learn something new from the area in which you live at, or even, the area where you were born at, you grew up at, or you moved here to. So we are here to just showcase everything that is in the 209. So before we introduce our awesome guest today, I wanted to remind you all, if you are not following the podcast social media yet, please give one of those platforms a follow. You can find it at the 209 Journey on Twitter, also the 209 Journey podcast on Facebook. Of course, you do also have the option to subscribe to the show, which I highly recommend because it will actually give you a notification every time we post a new episode, which I got to say, in the past, I know I said that I was aiming for every Tuesday. Life's gotten a little bit busy, so I haven't been able to quite time it on a Tuesday this time, but I am going to be posting a new episode once a week. That is definitely my goal, is to have an episode posted each week. So be on the lookout for that. So joining me today on the 209 Journey podcast is a friend who I met a couple of years ago. She has a lot of interesting stories, and I'm really excited to have her on here because she's done the trip from Oakdale to big cities, back to Oakdale, back to big cities, and even worked at Disney as well. So really, really curious how her journey went from 209 to out of 209 to back in 209 and all that. It should be a really interesting conversation. So let's all welcome Lauren Fields to the 209 Journey. Welcome, Lauren. How are you?
Woo! I'm doing great. How are you? I feel like I needed to woo myself in.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think everyone needs to woo themselves in, and I'm doing really good. Like I said, really excited to have you on here. I know it's the first time you're on a podcast, which I was actually surprised to hear that, by the way, when you told me that. I was like, really?
Yeah, no, usually I'm the one just getting people to be on them. I never really have to talk on them, so.
Awesome. Hey, I did your job this time, right? I'm trying to find people to be on, and I did that, so.
Give me a day off. I love it.
I learned from you, right? It's all those PR talks and all that, and that's where I'm at right now. So thank you.
Doing a great job.
Thank you. So let's go ahead and get started. As I said in the intro, you grew up in Oakdale. You were actually born in Oakdale too, and you're our first guest we have on here that is from Oakdale. So tell me everything there is about Oakdale. How was it growing up, and how has it changed over the years? Because I know it has really changed.
What a loaded question, but I love it. Yeah, Oakdale, Jokedale, or Oakdale, Smokedale ain't no Jokedale. Oakdale Bud, as a lot of people know us by. Rodeo, another great highlight of Oakdale. So I was born in Oakdale, literally in the hospital here. There's only one. And I actually come from my dad was born in Oakdale, and his parents were born in Oakdale. So we're like a third generation family of Oakdale, which in Oakdale is a big deal because we're the biggest small town in the Central Valley, I think. But yeah, so growing up in Oakdale, it was pretty cool because I was just kind of talking about it. I think when I was a kid, it was early 90s-ish. So it was pretty much like a 10,000 person town, 15,000 maybe, fluctuating between the two. And since then it has like grown to like, I think we've got like 25,000 it says or something, but lots more houses. A lot of the things that used to be just like orchards and fields and things, it's like, oh, now it's developments. And so there's like new people here that weren't, the Oakdale families. And so I feel like there's a bunch of different stuff going on where it's like, ooh, but it's still Oakdale deep down. It's like, oh yeah, no, it's still all the same.
So I know Oakdale is known for a really big festival, right? The Chocolate Festival. Uh,
Oh gosh.
Tell me more about it. I know that's happening this year as well too, but I know you've probably been most of the time, right? You probably never missed one, maybe unless you were like out. But
Yeah. As a kid, we used to go all the time. That was like, oh, Chocolate Festival weekend is here. Let's go. It's going to be a big deal. Everyone avoid the middle of town. Yeah, we used to go all the time. My older brother used to take me. I passed out at one and hit my head real hard. That was a good time. It was always nice because there was chocolate. So, that was always a good time. And then I always liked all the vendors that would be through because for some reason right now, the only thing I can think about when you said Chocolate Festival was there's a vendor who had, and I know I've seen them at other festivals as well, but those plastic dinosaurs with the straws and they had like a juice in them. It might have been just a weird 90s thing, but it was awesome. And they were like, if they were there at the festival, I was like, I need my dinosaur cup. So, that was a very, not probably Oakdale themed, but to me, that was something I always remembered about the Chocolate Festival. Unfortunately, the Chocolate Festival, that was when Hershey's was there, was when I was a kid. So it was like such a big deal. And like, we went to Hershey's on field trips, like in first grade, I remember, and just like the vats of peanut butter and chocolate and just be like, every first grader's dream to go into a chocolate factory. But now we have Sconza, which is great. I've been there actually too. The people who are there are awesome. And so they've been keeping the Chocolate Festival going, which is lovely. Don't let the tradition die because we like our Chocolate Festival here in Oakdale.
Oh yeah. And when you mentioned that 90s thing, yeah, I I started to visualize because I've never seen that before, right? But of course, we know the 90s, the sippy cups, right? Those
they were like purple and red and bright pink, and whatever dinosaur you got had a different flavored juice. And like, I don't know what it was. It was probably just straight syrup with like a dash of water. But like as a child, it was the best thing ever. If I drank it now, I'd be like, so much sugar.
It's really good though that Oakdale's continuing with that tradition because I remember when Hershey left, how much of an impact that did to the town, right? Like you probably knew a lot of people that were impacted.
100%. And still to this day, it's still kind of something like you can bring it up around the wrong people and like you can just see everyone kind of like cringe. Like it's still like a sore topic for some folk, which understandably it was a big move. It was a huge industry here in Oakdale. So for them to just kind of like and leave, it was like, oh, well, okay. A lot of people lost a lot there, but we recover as well. So, such is life.
Oh yeah. Eventually something else came by and that happened. But I'm glad that they continue on with the festival because it should still be a tradition, right? And that's something that I think we see throughout different cities in the 209 is what I've noticed is that they still do their festivals, right? You got Riverbank with the wine and cheese.
Oh, yeah.
They still have that going on. And so it's awesome that we still see the small towns still have those
the Central
things.
Valley, I think, in general, is so obviously big on agricultural and produce and stuff. So it's great that every town kind of has like this focus of like, this one's ours, we're going to own it. And everyone here is going to just be all about this thing. And whether it be asparagus, whether it be like chocolate, whether it be wine and cheese, whether it be garlic, wherever festival you're going to, it's just like, I love that they're all going to own it. And like, that's going to be what the town kind of rallies behind because every town wants to be proud of whatever, item they tell us, like, this is ours. And we're like, yes, it is.
Right. It's really great. I mean, it's great that they have that. The Apricot Fiesta was actually my childhood festival.
Oh yeah.
Always Patterson. And it's definitely grown quite a bit since then. And it's awesome, just to see those things still thrive and people still going and all that. And that's basically only something you really find here, right? Like we mentioned before we started recording that, everyone knows someone who knows someone here in the 209. And that's what makes it so great is that you can have a connection almost immediately with someone because they're going to know someone that you know. And that's not normally something you don't get in other places, right?
Yeah. So actually kind of jumping to like a Disney point is there was one point where I was working at Disneyland, and at Disneyland, when you work at Disneyland, they put where your hometown is on your name badge. And I was working in like a huge store, just doing like retail and stuff. And I was helping this lady, Disneyland, thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people daily. This lady comes up to my thing, she's checking her out. I'm asking her questions. We're talking. She's like, does your name badge say Oakdale? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, you're from Oakdale? And I was like, yes, born and raised, cowboy capital of the world, like my little Oakdale, yes, I am spiel. And she's like, no way, that's where I'm from. Like, I grew up there, blah, blah, blah. So we get to talking. Find out this woman was best friends with my aunt. My dad babysat her and my aunt, like, when all the stuff. So she used to go over to my grandparents' house, which they still live like right around the rodeo grounds. So everyone knows that house. Like, if they know them, they like, oh yeah, like it's that house by the rodeo grounds. So like this whole woman knew all about my dad. She was asking me questions, such details, and like telling me stories that I was like, wait, what? I've never heard these things. And she was just this lady that I met at checking out at Disneyland. And I was like, what? Like, you were a pivotal part of my like parents' life, my like dad's life. Like, I think she was even my aunt's wedding or something. Crazy. But in the words of Disney, it's a small world after all.
Oh, you took the words out of my mouth right there. I was just getting ready to say that. I was like, if the mouse is okay with me saying this, I'm going to say this right now.
It's like, I podcasted the podcaster.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you got me. Yeah, I got to say this. I had a similar story that happened now that we're kind of mentioning a quick Disneyland story there too. And this was really crazy. And I was with my parents, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think we were just sitting in a bench. It may have been like in the center, right, where you got that giant statue with Walt and Mickey, right, holding Mickey's hand. And out of nowhere, we see our front neighbors actually pass by, and we were like, "Hey, is that you?" And they're like, "Oh yeah." And it was the craziest thing, because we were like, "Wait, did you guys plan your vacation around the same time we planned it, or what just happened here?" And they had no idea, right? We didn't know they were going to be there. They didn't know we were going to be there. There wasn't anything of that. It was just pure coincidence that we were right there at the same time.
You guys could have carpooled.
Basically, yeah. So, after that, I was like, you know what? It truly is a small world after all. That is fact right there. And what you also said is also another factual claim. And so it is really a small world. And I think the craziest thing, though, is that, going from our area to Disneyland, depending what time you go, of course, right? If you go at maybe like night at 10 p.m., maybe you might be good. You might miss traffic. But any other time, right? It's a long drive, right? I mean, it's going to be a good couple hours to get there. And so, yeah, it was just so crazy. It's like, wow, we planned it so great without planning anything.
I love it.
But we'll definitely get to more Disneyland stories here. Yeah. Like afterwards. I'm really excited to hear more Disneyland stuff too, actually, as you know, right? Because we had our conversations about that in the past.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm really curious to know, right? So you make the jump from Oakdale to bigger cities, back to Oakdale, and you just keep going at it. Tell me what went behind your decision to say, you know what, I'm going to take a little break from Oakdale, from the Central Valley. I'm going to go venture out and, go to a bigger city. And, just tell me a little bit more about that and about all the different journeys of going back.
As a kid, I traveled a lot just because my mom loved traveling. So like I got out of Oakdale all the time. And so it was never kind of like one of those things that like a lot of people who live in small towns, and I think in Oakdale, but anywhere, they're always like, want to get out of their small town life and blah, blah, blah. I was never that kid. I loved Oakdale. I loved coming home to Oakdale. I went on a 2-week road trip with my grandparents once in an RV. And as soon as we got out, I kicked open that door, got on the ground and started kissing the ground and rolling around in the grass. I loved coming, that was my favorite part of any trip, was coming home. So it was funny when I got older and you turn 18, you're like, okay, what am I going to do? And originally I was going to go to college and move, and that was going to be my first move out. And that just didn't pan out the way that it was going to. So I was like, okay, well then I'll go to MJC. I'll, be local. And then halfway through that, I was like, no, I want to do something different. Let's just try something else. So that's when I went to New Orleans first. I went to New Orleans for a little bit and did some volunteer work down there for a summer. And then when I came back from that, I was like, ooh, okay, that was fun. I should do something like that again. And so then I just started to try and find opportunities that I thought I would like. And that's kind of what led me like to Disney. And I got the job at Disneyland, and I was like, okay, well, here we go. We're going to try this. We're going to do this. And I think I was 19 when I first moved. So my first time, like being in New Orleans was really my first time away from home, and being in Louisiana, like so far away, was like a lot, but that was really only a few months. And I kind of had the decision of like, well, I can come back whenever I want. This was more of like, no, I have to make a commitment to this. Like, I'll have a job. I have to have a place to live. Like, I have to pay bills. Like, okay. So that was kind of crazy, but like, thankfully, like through Disney, like I did the college program. So they assist you so much in that way. And so they made it really easy. Like, you basically get paid to live in the Disney housing and all this kinds of stuff while you take classes with them. And they just do a really nice job of facilitating that. And that was like a 6-month program. So by the end of that, I was like, okay, like I could either go home or I can stay here. And I was like, I'm going to stay here. And then I tried to find an apartment, and that's way harder than they ever tell you. And so that hit me hard. And I was like, okay, I'm going home first, but maybe I'll come back. So then I went home after 6 months in LA, and I was like, all right, I'm going back. I'm going back. I came home, but I'm going back. So 6 months later, I moved back and moved into a house with some friends that I had made down there. And we got a duplex. There was 3 guys in one room, 3 girls in one room, 2 guys in another room. And we had 2 bathrooms, and that was it. And like, we all had like giant dogs. It was a mess. It was so small and so ridiculous. And we all were 20 years old. So we were like, yeah. So that was great. Good times. Well, I all worked at Disneyland too. So that was the other funny part, was like, it was a Disney household. Living with 5 people is hard. Living on your own is hard. Living on your own in your 20s in LA with 5 people is very difficult. So after about a year, I was like, we're going to change this situation again. And so me and one of the girls who lived with us is from Oakdale as well. She's my best friend. We've been best friends since Oakdale high school days. Woo woo. So her and I were like, all right, we're blowing the popsicle stand. We're going back to good old Oakdale. Like, here we go. So we're going back to Oakdale. And when I came back to Oakdale that time, I came with purpose. Like, I knew, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to school. I registered at Columbia up in Sonora. And I was like, I'm going to get a degree. I'm going to figure out what I want to do. I'm going to figure out what I like. And then I'm going to go to like a university, and from there find something. So yeah. So from there, basically, that's when I moved again. That's what took me to Oregon. From Oregon, I went back to LA for about a year, which was its own thing. And then from LA, I went to Seattle. And then from Seattle, I came back to Oakdale. And now I've been here again. And I've been here for, I think, 2-3 years now since then. Don't do the math to try and figure out how old I am though.
Oh, yeah. You're like, oh no, I just gave away my age. Oh no.
I know. I was like, if anyone's counting the years. That's not
they might overcount them. Don't worry. Usually people like overcount them, and they're like, wait, are you 40 years old? You're like, oh, okay.
Sure.
All right. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm 40.
I think that'd be a pretty cool 40-year-old person.
Yeah. That's just knowing you, I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. I mean, you think different, I think, than other millennials in the area, which is great. I think we need more millennials like you that think that way too.
What kind of you? I'll be the millennial of our generation.
But you know, that's really interesting. I mean, you moved back and forth, and
oh yeah, and like it was so nice though. Like throughout all of that, to kind of just encompass the whole thing. Like Oakdale never was not there. Like Oakdale was never not an option, and that's what it was always the nicest thing. Is like no matter what I threw myself into and what experiment, I was like, I'm gonna try that. Like. I was like, I'm going to go try living there. I'm going to try living in this situation. I'm going to try working in this situation. And if I ever was like, nope, this isn't quite right. I was like, well, I'll go back to Oakdale because at least I know that's a great, like, I'm good here. I'm fine here. Like, I'm happy here. I love it here. There's so many things that I love here. So it's easy for me to like find myself. It's easier for me to like, get grounded. And I'm like, okay, yeah, like I can function very well here, but I grew up doing that.
So of all the times that like you moved back and forth while you were away from Oakdale, what were some things that like you missed the most from not being in Oakdale?
I am a Stanislaus River girl. I am river folk. I miss jumping in the river. I miss hiking around Knight's Ferry. You know me very well. that I'm in Knights Ferry quite often. Lived in Knights Ferry, actually, technically, one of those times that I moved back to Oakdale briefly and then came back. But yeah, so it was always that. But mostly, like, the heart of it all is the community that I have here, the community of people that I have here. Oakdale, surprisingly, not surprisingly, erase that. It's not surprising that Oakdale has a good music scene. It's just something that people don't recognize as much as they should. So like the music scene in Oakdale, and just in the surrounding 209 area, Modesto, Turlock, all those kinds of guys, are really close. Like, I love them. I love a lot of those folk. And, so it was always hard being away from them because music's my lifeblood. So to be around people who at home who make me feel like that and get to be around that kinds of stuff was always hard to be away from them. But the nice thing about music people is they often tour. So they usually came through my area at some point. So it wasn't too bad. But, that's just kind of the stuff that I think people, when they think about maybe the 209 or Oakdale, they don't always think about like, oh yeah, no, like we have some really great like art and music and things like that. And it's just like, yeah, no, right here in our backyard. Like, we don't got to go to LA for that. We don't got to go to San Francisco for that. It's here.
Yeah. And it's awesome, right? I mean, the more we get to say that, the more, we just get more tourism and more people exploring the area. And, that's why this podcast is there for too. Also for those people who are like, oh, what else do you guys do? Right. Aside from just being an agricultural valley. It's like, well, there's more to us, right? I mean, we do feed the world. I always tell people that aren't from the area. I'm like, oh, we feed everyone. If it weren't for us,
yeah,
I don't know where we would
almonds and you like milk, then you are in the right town.
But speaking of the music scene, what are some artists that you would kind of recommend to people who aren't from Oakdale, or even not even from the 209, or even who are, but might not have a clue of like local music scene? What are some like musicians that you would recommend that were like born in maybe not just Oakdale, but like in general in the 209 that you are like, yeah, these are the ones that you got to listen to?
Totally. Yeah. So of course, first off, my brother, Will Taylor, he technically actually just moved out of Oakdale. So I don't know if that's blasphemous or not to say him first, but totally like he's everything to me about music. He's beyond Oakdale in that sense. So the fact that he is from Oakdale for me is just like one of those like, heck yeah, we grew up in the same backyard. Like, we grew up riding our bikes down the same streets. We grew up, doing all those things that Oakdale kids do, like riding in their dad's trucks and like going over cattle guards and like, doing stupid stuff in orchards and stuff like that. Like, we have all that together, and he writes songs about it and sings about it. And it's like, oh, I know exactly who this person is because they lived a life so similar to mine. And that's just like, oh, yes, perfect. And he just brings so many good people. He brought Tom Vandenhoven, who is a singer-songwriter who actually is from Wisconsin and lived in Texas and all those kinds of stuff. Will kind of brought him in, and now he lives in Oakdale. And so it's like, oh, perfect, lovely, bringing in good people as well. Modesto's got such a great music scene. My roommate plays music. She's actually an artist in the area too. Beautiful work. But Modesto and Turlock, like Modesto's music scene, there's just so many people. Like, there's like the Tiffany Rose group. There's Chris Dowd, like, who played in a band with Will, the Good Luck Thrift Store Outfit, which is, I would say, a Oakdale classic. If you don't know the Good Luck Thrift Store Outfit and you're from Oakdale, then what are you doing? Why are you here? No, I'm kidding. But yeah, there's been a lot. There's been so many people. Big Girl, Ava Grace. Like, I'm like, I know I'm blanking on people, so I feel bad because I want to name everybody I know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I've got to let everyone who's from here like give them their credit. But there's just such a rich scene, and it's constantly changing. It's conscious, like always evolving. Cole Hinkle and the Debauchery are great. And it's great too because a lot of the places around here allow them to do what they do. So whether it be in Modesto, there's so many great venues that just allow them to kind of play with them. But Knights Ferry, like, area, like, we need more of it, of course. But like, there's so many places that are opening up to it. Oakdale just got this great venue, and the brewery Dying Breed. I don't know if you've been there yet. Oh yeah. Okay. We're going to have to do that sometime. So Oakdale's got a few breweries that have opened up during the pandemic and all that kinds of stuff. And they're killing it. It's great. But Dying Breed specifically, they built like an outdoor stage, and it's professional. It's great. and they've been bringing in a lot of like great acts and like big acts from different, like from the cities and all those types of things, but also still putting local boys on their stage, or local gals and folk and people and things. And like, it's awesome. It's so cool to see like bands that I usually would travel to the city to go see, like just pick up and go and walk down, Die and Breed, and so just a few blocks away, and bam, now I get to see a full, like, amazing show that I'd pay $20 to go see in San Francisco and drive all that way there, So it's pretty cool. Like, there's some cool stuff happening. Like, things are working. It's cool to see it blossoming like that, and locally.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on around here, and I think they just need to be brought more into light, right? And that's one of the things that we're doing here again with the show, with on social media. Try to share.
You and I've had, obviously, working together in a marketing agency in the 209 area, which is where we met. I think we've had that conversation a lot of just like how people in our area consume media and how they like advertisements and how like that. And it's interesting to watch even those kinds of things, how much they've changed since you and I just worked together like a year or two ago. I don't know about you and where you're at, but I feel like Oakdale consumes things in such a different way than they did just 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And what I mean by consume, like social media, advertising, marketing, all those types of things that we think about on the daily that some people don't even realize. But it's intriguing.
Yeah, we're going to be more technologically, advanced and all that here. And I've always said it, right? I mean, even though the big cities might have more technology, they might have more of that, eventually we're going to catch up. It's only a matter of time, right? Because we're seeing so much growth in the valley. We're seeing so many things, being constructed, so many different companies coming down and all that I think it's a matter of time before that happens. But I am a little worried, though, that, they might, mess around with a lot of agricultural fields. And before you know it, we might not be in Ag Valley anymore. And there might be something else.
I know. That's always like the fears, like the city people are coming. Like, I always feel like that's the thing. It's like, as soon as they start building houses, everyone's like, people from the city are coming. And it's like, okay, like, yeah, I get it. Like, I'm worried about it too. Cause obviously, like I said, from when I was a kid, what Oakdale was to now is different, but like, it doesn't go away. Like, that heart and soul of a town doesn't disappear as long as the people don't. And so the more people who join, yeah, they'll shift and change it, but the foundation's laid. Like, it is what you want it to be, and it's going to stay the way that, with a little bit of that kind of heart, hopefully, and the good stuff, So I have some faith in our small towns, and also the people need to eat, so they can't take away the fields, man. We got people to feed in this world.
Yeah, no, that's true. That whenever I think about that, I'm like, well, maybe it might not go away. I mean, there's other options, right? They could do too, and even if it doesn't just completely go away, right? They could always just do, indoor growing and all that, which might help us with the drought that we're having right now, and that might end up being something that they do, just to recycle water and all that stuff. So who knows? It might, because we are in a serious drought.
One of my friends has a song. They live in Santa Cruz, but I think about it all the time during the summer here when we're in drought time. And the lyric is, come to California where the grass is always brown. And I think that's like just kind of the funniest line, because I feel like growing up in California in general, when you leave California, people are like, oh, you're from California. And it's like, yes, but guess what? We ain't pretty. Like, at least like, I think we're pretty. I love it. Like, not saying that we're not pretty, but like, it's not that, idealized vision that people have, especially being from the Central Valley. Like, I remember people in Florida asking me once if I like had famous neighbors and stuff. And I'm like, no, I live next to like the old woman who's my friend's grandmother, and she brings me cookies, and, my neighbor who I've never met, but I'm pretty sure he like rode a bull in the rodeo or something and won a medal or something for it. Unfortunately, I don't know a lot about the rodeo, so I'm sorry for being the first Oakdale representative and not knowing too much about rodeo. Horrible representation. I apologize, Oakdalians.
And it's one of those things where they do say that, but it's like, well, I know plenty of people from the LA area who don't know anyone who's famous, so it's like, you could still be from where the famous person is from and still don't know them, right? Because they're in their
Right.
own world. They're not going to be out there. They're not going to be. They're surely
No,
not going to be going downtown, right? Because
don't
they
worry.
got their
Like,
own.
if you live there, you don't care. You're not going down your grocery aisle worrying about who you're grocery shopping next to. You're just trying to get your mac and cheese so you can go home and eat dinner.
Yeah, that's so true, right? Like I think it's really only people that aren't from the area that really go crazy over, oh look, that's so and so. Oh look, let's go find that celebrity now.
Yeah, exactly.
But fortunately, we don't have that. And if you ever do see a famous person around here, it's like, oh, what brings you to our Central Valley?
Yeah, do
Great,
you need a map? Did you get lost? Are you on your way to Yosemite? You must go that way.
Oh yeah, that's true, right? And you bring up another good point, right? That
Ah,
Oakdale is pretty much like the
the gateway to
gateway.
Yosemite.
Oh,
Yes.
wait, there we.
Um,
Is that right?
when I was okay, total side tangent off the Gateway of Yosemite, but when I was like 14, I brought these musicians from like the Sacramento area to come play a show at one of the community halls because I was that kid, and like these guys, none of the musicians I brought had ever been to Oakdale, had ever heard of Oakdale. Like there was like a band from Sacramento, or there was 3 bands from Sacramento and 1 from LA, and I remember the band, one of the bands from Sacramento. The guy's like a famous YouTuber now, which is super weird. But like, he like looked up Oakdale on Wikipedia and just started listing all these facts about Oakdale, like throughout his set. Like a song would end and he'd be like, "So Oakdalians, did you know?" And like would be like, "This famous football player," or blah blah blah, like whatever Oakdale tidbit he had, and he would like say it, and then he'd be like, "Yes, the gateway to Yosemite." And so anytime I hear the gateway to Yosemite, I just see this spiky emo haired, purple haired kid being like, "The gateway to Yosemite, Oakdale fun fact." Like, so that will forever be the gateway to Yosemite person for me. But yes, to get back to Yosemite.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just think it's really great that you guys are considered that, and for anyone who wants to go to Yosemite, it's like, well, you got multiple ways to go to Yosemite, but personally, I prefer taking usually the way where you pass by Oakdale versus passing through like Merced through that side. Not that it's not great, but I just think that I'd much rather pass by Oakdale because there's a couple more things to do there than over on the outskirts of Merced, which you're getting more outskirts, and there's not really that much over there. Whereas over here with you guys, right, you pass Oakdale, you have Knights Ferry, you have the new bar that you said just opened, right? You have the music scene, you have a ice cream shop, right? That's also in Knights Ferry. Yeah,
oh, the Knights Ferry Creamery. Yeah, Knights Ferry is like anyone who goes to Yosemite through the Oakdale route, like obviously stop in Knights Ferry, do the covered bridge, learn as much history as possible. That town is beautiful. It's ancient. It's just amazing. Head up the creamery, head up, the general store that's been there forever, because the general store is a magic place, and like it's the most magic place in the world. And the river's edge is great if you want a nice like lunch or dinner and like sit by the river. Like Knights Ferry to me is just like the gem of the world.
Oh yeah, it really is. Especially if you want to go hiking too. There's a lot of great views, and yeah, I mean it is the place. And I might be wrong. I shouldn't be quoted for this too, but I have a feeling that it's the place where if you want to get a nice outdoorsy studio kind of feel, right, to take professional pictures at. I think that is probably the one place.
That is the number one location for photo shoot families. Can I tell you? Maternity photos, Knights Ferry. Prom photos, Knights Ferry. Senior photos, Knights Ferry. Like everybody I know has their like fancied photo like up in Knights Ferry with like the background of the hills all golden with all of it, or like the river flowing by with their family in arms. Like I love it. I love it so much because it's like Knights Ferry is truly beautiful, and it's just great that it's become like the touch tone like backdrop for everybody's family moments.
It actually, I mean, I speak by experience actually, because it was the backdrop to a couple of pictures that they took when I went out with club in college. We made a trip out there, and we even went camping out there too. And
there was like a photography club or something. Like that I heard about, and they would go up to Knight's Ferry and do like photos or something. And I was always like, yeah, I've been out there like hiking with my dog, and like there's people painting out there. There's always somebody, people are always up to nonsense up there. There's always people filming things. Like there's always people just walking down the road with a guitar. Like Knight's Ferry's like the smallest place, but it's always popping.
So I want to know this, and I know this one's going to be a really tough question, but it doesn't have to be the most, but if you have one, great. If not, no. But what would you say has been like your most favorite memory in Oakdale? What's like that one story that, anyone who asks you about Oakdale, you're like, oh yeah, this is like one of my most favorite moments that I've had so far.
I'm going to kind of like combine a bunch of moments because.
Okay, awesome. That's
yes. So, and it is what it is. I'm not even going to try to defend it. So kind of going back to the music side of things, there's something like for me, and I talk about this to people all the time, and I talk to people just because it's part of that community that I was talking about earlier. But nights at the Cow Track in Lounge in Oakdale, for me, especially when there was music there, are just one of those. You sit down at the bar, Charlie's behind the bar, you totally know who's bartending, no matter who it is. If it's not Charlie, you still know. If it's somebody else, you know who the security guard is. You're battling with some table off to the side with the jukebox and who's going to play the better music. Your best friends are walking in, even though you guys weren't even texting each other. And then everyone's yelling at each other, trying to play shuffleboard. The band is playing, and it's probably Willie T, or it's, the Good Luck Thrift Store outfit, or back in the day at least. And like, somebody that is local, somebody that is your bud, somebody like they used to do open mic nights on Wednesdays, and those were the nights. But like, that's just that whole thing of like, you go into the Cow Track, like when I go, like, it's one of like, I'm going to see my mom, I'm going to see, Tom, I'm going to see like my family, I'm going to see my closest friends, I'm going to see people I love. Like, it's just that moment of like, oh yeah, this is it. Like, this is the epicenter of like what I like in my life, the people I love in my life. Like, we can all come here and we all kind of are like, yeah, like we won't know everybody at the bar, but at most nights you walk away and you're friends with all these new people, or you're sitting there and you're like, oh man, I remember seeing that person from high school. Oh, I don't remember their name. Like, crap. I'd been to the Cow Track when there was like some Oakdale high school reunion there one night, and I was like, I need to leave. Everybody knows each other. Like, so it's a balance, of course, but for me, like, it's just those nights where we'd all get together, we'd all go out for a common purpose, whether it be music or just getting together to, have a good time together. And the way everything kind of serendipitously like falls into place because, we all know like, hey, we can go there and we're gonna have a good time. Like, that was just, it's hard to find those kinds of places, especially when there's so many options. But like, we got our crew. We know where to find each other. It's great. It's Cheers, where everybody knows your name.
That's awesome. I mean, you put it very well, right? Everyone knows your name, and that's basically what the 209 is. And especially more communities like Oakdale, right? That are still small, and hopefully, they stay that way because everyone who has lived there, like yourself, really loves that aspect of it too. And looking at it from, I guess you could say from an outsider's perspective, from me being in Modesto, which we know is a little bit bigger, I think it's really awesome to still see that. Not that we're losing some of that ourselves here, but you guys have more of that, right? Because you still have more of that small community feel.
Well,
and
I think it also depends too, because sorry to cut you off there, but just kind of I just thought of this, but like my family, I mentioned that like part of my family was born and raised here. My mom wasn't. My mom was actually from LA. My dad was a member of the community, so he was very involved. My brother is a member of the community and is very involved. And like, even though like I have kind of pinballed all over the West Coast, I guess, essentially, like, my little brother was really involved. Like, a lot of my family has been very involved in the community in their own way, in their own, situation. And so it's kind of funny to kind of be the one who is always like away from Oakdale and then to come back. But everyone knows my family. And everyone's like, wait, you're related to them? You're related to them? They're related? Like, and I'm always like, oh yeah. Like, you don't even know the like triangles that exist in this town. Like, those are my people, but like no one would know. So it is kind of nice because I feel like a little incognito sometimes because I'm like, oh yes, I'm the forgotten sister or the forgotten daughter. Like, not forgotten. I don't want to say that. That sounds horrible. But like I feel like I've kind of been able to like, because I've left and gone around so much that I'm like, hello, yes, I am an Oakdalian. Surprise.
Oh yeah, that's true. It would be Oakdalian. I just heard the
That's
last
what I
part
always
alien.
say. I don't know what it actually is, but that's always the one I've preferred because I think it's just more exciting to say.
No, that is actually a really cool name. It sounds kind of cool. Yeah, it's with Modesto that sometimes I'm like, what are we, Modestonians? But then that makes it sound like we're from like the Stone Age, right?
It does kind of.
So I'm like, what other name? Come on, someone.
Like a Modestan. I don't know.
Well, I guess
Modestite. That sounds bad.
Yeah, it's like someone give us a good name, but not an appropriate one, right? Because we've heard all.
Oh yeah,
all the other ones. Out there.
I feel like if, to keep a tie or a toe in Oakdale of some sort, like I probably have to like be an ambassador that does get to leave.
Yes.
I travel so often and like try and do random stuff so often that I just be like, I love you from afar.
You read my mind, that'll probably be the title of this episode. Oakdale's ambassador, Lauren Fields. There you go. I don't
know how well that fits. Like I'm a little kooky. But I do what I can. I guess I'm still Oakdale, still born and raised.
Yeah, still. Yeah. that should be fair, right? I mean, there is no characteristic of any town that's the way I see it, right? Because if you grew up somewhere, that's where you grew up at. Doesn't matter where it is, right? People shouldn't like stereotype, shouldn't just say, oh, you're from there, okay, you must be, it's like that. It's like, no, you must be however you are, right? No matter where you grew up at. So yeah, so in my mind, I gotta say, anytime I think Oakdale, because I mean, a part of it might be because I've never really talked to someone. I was going to say Oakdalian again, to use your terminology. I haven't talked to someone as much as yourself from Oakdale. And so anytime I think Oakdale, I'm like, oh, that's Lauren's town. That's Lauren's hometown. So.
Oh, and I own it too. Like, I'm like, yeah, from Oakdale. Let's go to Cahoots. Let's do this. Yeah. You like the fire horn engine? Woo. I love that thing. Yeah. I don't know if you know this. This is my favorite Oakdale tidbit, and it's very dear to my heart. And it does cause a lot of controversy in the town. I think there was some article in the Oakdale Leader at some point about it. But so the firehouse in Oakdale, it has this like horn on the top of it, and it goes off in the morning, at noon, and at night. So I think it goes off at 7 a.m. and like 6 o'clock at night. And it's this loud, like, brrr! It's just obnoxious. If you're close to it, it will give you a heart attack. I love it. I think it's the weirdest, best thing like in the world, and some people don't, but I'm like, that's an Oakdale thing, and I will tell everyone about it because it's awesome. And it was gone for a while, and I was really upset about it, but they brought it back, and I hope they never take it away.
No, I have to experience that myself, as much as, like you said, I might get a heart attack, but
yeah, don't get too close to the firehouse. Like, try and stay a few blocks away still, because you'll hear it no matter where you are in town.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but that's a great Oakdale thing that a lot of people hate, but I love it. And yeah, 7 o'clock in the morning, noon, and 6 o'clock at night.
Hey, if you want to know what time it is and you don't have a watch or your phone's battery's dead, that's one way to find out, right? Exactly.
I love it in the morning because I'll be doing stuff, and then when I hear it, I'm like, "Ooh, it's 7. Okay, I gotta do this now." It's a great like reminder of like, "Oh, it's this time. Okay, like I should probably get on this or get off that or do whatever I'm doing." For me, that's how I used it, but I've lived around it my whole life. And also like my father was a fireman, so I'm partial because it was at the firehouse. So I'm like, haha.
And not to mention, it's an alarm as well, right? You forget to put your alarm, you got a free alarm.
You live close enough. I can't imagine you would ever be able to wake up anytime after 7.
Well, that's good. I gotta say, that's really good, because sometimes it's so easy to oversleep, and you need that.
Yeah, and there's no snooze on this thing.
Oh yeah, it's gonna wake you up. Well, last thing, Lauren, because and I know we kind of mentioned it before, but I can't have a podcast with you if I don't have some more Disney stories, because I know that at least when it comes to Oakdale, because of course I haven't talked to the people in the area who also worked at Disney. You're probably going back to the Oakdale ambassador thing. You're probably Disney's Oakdale ambassador. I can almost guarantee it right now without talking to anybody else in Oakdale. You are a representation of Oakdale that went to Disney and all that. And for a lot of people, it's like in their dream list, right? To just work at Disney. It doesn't matter what they do. They just want to be there and all that. So, just tell me some of your memorable stories. It could be one or two that, you forever remember when someone asks you, how was it like working at Disney? That these are like some of the things you say.
Okay. Yeah. I will say totally on, like, I don't know if I am the Disney, I was a Disney ambassador, actually. Like, that was a title that I held, but, so that's kind of funny, but, I'm sure there's tons of people in Oakdale who can gladly talk about Disney for hours and love it and all that kinds of stuff. For me, I decided that I wanted to work for Disney as a kid, just almost like as a joke. Like, I was like, oh yeah, that's my dream. Cause like, I like Disney, but I wasn't like obsessed. Like, I was just like, oh, I enjoy it cause it's weird and fun and for kids and yeah. And so the reason that I wanted to join though, was because in the Modesto Mall, Vintage Fair Mall, they had the Disney store. And back then it was the one on the first floor. It was the pink and green store is what they called them. That was the design of those types of stores. And, they had the window display with Donald and Goofy, and they were playing violins, and there was music papers flying around. I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember this? Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah. I used to always go to it whenever I would go to the mall. That was like the one store that it's up for sure. You got to go there. You got to experience a little bit. Even if
you're like not into it, you still had to do a lap, like just to see Plush Mountain and to turn around. Mm-hmm. Totally. And I remember as a kid walking by, I was like, I'm going to work for Disney because I want to get in that window display. And like, I just wanted to sit in the window display and mess with stuff and touch it. Like, I was like, yes, that's what I want. I can now say that I have done that. I sat in that window display. I have many pictures of me playing the violin of things in those windows set before they got rid of that store, before they closed that pink and green and moved to the upstairs one. I was like, ha, 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 I get to live my dream. And that was me completing my Disney dream. So I know other people's Disney dreams might be a little bit different. So I want to put that into context because it was all about being in that window display in the Vintage Fair Mall. For me, huge highlight.
And that's not even considering the park itself, right?
I know. I mean, like, yeah, I worked at the parks first, which is the funny part. Like, I worked for the parks and then ended up working for the stores for a while. But yeah, so that was just like, for that one, I was like, oh yeah, I got to live that Disney dream. How amazing. Wonderful. Yes. The parks though, and things like that. Just stories of working at the parks. It's one of those things where I have so many that I'm like, the best part about it, honestly, is just the interactions with people. That's what I like about anything and everything that I do is, and partially why I do PR and marketing and things like that is I love creating those experiences. And Disney, on every level, whether it be store, whether it be, at the parks, whether it be however they want to interact with you, they try to make every moment special and personal and magic. They want to always create magic. And that is something that I love. I love all of that, and it doesn't even have to be Disney themed for me, but for them, it's just like, for them to be able to do that, they taught me that. And I love being able to bring that into like the real world, the outside world, and the outside Disney world. And so I think beyond everything, any moment that I got to like hang out with a kid and they got to teach me all about Tinkerbell and her fairy friends. And like, we would run around like having an adventure, like on the floor of the stores and like, pretending we were fairies hiding under rocks. Like, that's those little small moments. Or kids, when I had like short red hair, who would be like, are you Peter Pan? And then I'd be like, yes. And like run and hide from them because they'd have to find me. Or like, teaching kids how to play with lightsabers and teaching them Jedi training and doing all those types of things. Like, that's the kinds of stuff, like at the park, at the store, like whatever my Disney experience was, that's the stuff that I'm like, that's the Disney magic. That's what you can't sell that. That's something you can only create through like real interaction and real experience of like being there with somebody who's going to like bring that world to life. And that's the coolest thing.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And then you come back and over here you apply that. I think it's really great when you work at a job and you get not just professional development, right? But you learn to apply things from one job in other aspects of life. I
Oh,
mean,
100%.
that's an awesome job right there. I mean, when you achieve that.
And that's what's funny is like, I went to college to get a degree in PR and public relations stuff. And, I did an internship and did all these fancy like marketing jobs and agency jobs. But like, I learned the most about marketing and PR and just, working with people from working in retail at the Disney store, or from, doing whatever odd job that I had at at Disneyland Park where I was getting paid minimum wage. Like, nothing taught me more than those experiences, and nothing has taught me more in a professional sense. Nothing has taught me more in like how I conduct my business and professionalism with people. Like, it has completely taught me everything that like I hold dear to my practice. And it's just like, and it wasn't even like, it wasn't, what part of like the career aspect of it all. It was just like, no, it's just a job that I kind of took and would grab for fun, and that I was good at, and that I liked it. And I was like, cool, like, I'm just gonna, hang out with kids today and pretend we're all Captain Marvel and, go pew pew all day or something. Like, we did so much. But that's just, the crazy bit of it all. And, of course, there's the crazy stories of like getting to ride rides and see things before other people do, and, be a part of those big announcements, because there are so many people who love Disney with all of their heart, and that is their makeup, their personalities, and their everything. And like, it's not mine, which is fine. Like, I still love it. I still appreciate it. There's so much about it that I find so intriguing, but, it is just something that I'm like, it's just so good. It's just so, like, you can't deny like the greatness that they are and what they've done with branding and marketing and just overall magic creation. Like, they literally are a magic factory. And it's like, how in the world, like, even after, like, I worked with Disney overall for 7 years, and I'm still like, how am I not completely jaded by these people? That's always the biggest shock to me. But I'm like, because the magic is way worse than like, all of the good completely weighs out any of like the things that people are like, Disney's bad. And I'm like, no, it's never.
Oh yeah. I mean, in general, a lot of people like to look at the not so good things, right? And not really look at other aspects of it too. And yeah, I mean, they've done a really amazing job running that company, and then they continue to grow, and they acquire more things. And yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot on that too. And if I could do a podcast on Disney too, see, there you go. I might.
I don't doubt that would be a very long podcast. There's so much to discuss there.
Oh yeah, there'd be a lot.
Sure, and people have already covered that ground in great detail.
Oh yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of them out there. And I'm not a connoisseur by any means of Disney, to have to say. But I do enjoy some movies, especially if they come from Pixar. That's my number one.
Yes, home run. I mean, now that Disney has acquired Star Wars and Marvel, as a Star Wars and Marvel fan, I was like, well, looks like they've captured me even more than they had me before. So, darn.
You're like, I might go back now, right? We're back.
Yeah, that was like the thing. I was like, well, I could always just go back to Disney, no matter what happens in my life. Like, I could always just go back, I guess. But I think me and the mouse have parted ways. I think we're good. I can't imagine. I'm not moving back to LA. Like, nope, that's not happening. Like, done it 3 times now. 3rd time was not a charm. So we're just gonna axe that idea, and we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah. You're like, I've been. Yeah, I get you. As someone who just travels there just for vacation, I'm like, we'll leave it at just vacation. I gotta go back home. I miss home.
Yeah, I'm back and forth. Like, sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I'm moving out here. This is where my new home will be. And then I'm like, but I live here, and I like my house, and I like my place, and I know where my favorite aisle in the grocery store is, and all that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I feel like I almost say, I think it's going to become a tradition where I say it in every podcast, that anytime any one of us from the 209 goes out, and even people who have lived, like in your case, right, like who have moved out for a little bit, we always end up being homesick. And a lot of people, I've heard it from other people as well, that they end up coming back, right? They're like, you know what? I'm gonna go back home. I'm done with this traffic. I'm done with this like city life. I'm done with paying so much for rent and all that. I'm going back home.
Shameless plug here to, again, my music friends. Willie T. Taylor, the song Lullaby. That song talks completely about that exact thing, about going off to the city and just like, man, like that homesickness. And like, I will say every time I've left Oakdale, there's still always some part of me that's like, what am I doing? What am I missing? Like, what is this? I just need to go back home and like figure it out. And then I'll come visit and I'll be like, this was the most refreshing weekend. I'm rejuvenated. I feel like that the whole thing again. And then I'll go away and I'm like, what is that? I missed that again. Like, what? And it's like, it's just something. But yeah, shameless plug to Willie T. Taylor's song, Lullaby. That song got me through every single time I lived away. Every time I move away, I listen to that song and I'm always like, yeah, this is right. This is my life. So definitely suggest if you're from the 209 and you miss it, take a listen to that song. It's a nice little folky tune for you.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll have to listen to that anytime I'm out on vacation, because I'm not planning on like moving anytime soon. But if I'm on vacation, because it's happened
it's just a little too long.
It's a little too long. 2 days are a little too long.
I was gonna say, is a vacation ever too long though? I mean, I don't know if I've ever had that problem, but
oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, I meant like little too long, as in like little too long outside of home, right outside of the area. It's like, I could go back to vacation. I think I'll just go. I went to Disneyland one day already, right?
Okay, staycation time now. Like, let's get back to the staycation.
yeah, nothing like
and
the
after
good old
COVID, we're all still into this staycation.
Pretty much, right? It's we're still in that. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. I've had a really great time, as I always do, talking to you. And it had been years, right? I think at this point, or not years. It feels like years, right? But I think maybe like a year since we had actually talked, right? As in like not just like message, but actually voice chatted. And so it's been really great. I'm really glad that you chose this podcast as your first podcast that you're on.
Yes, thank you for asking me. Thank you for having me. It was a blast. I was like super nervous before coming on. I was like, what do I do? But obviously, like you and I, we have great conversations, I think, every time we get together and talk. So I was like, oh, duh, I forgot how easy it is to talk to you. So you're perfect for like podcast hosting.
Oh, thank you. I'm really glad to hear that. And yeah, it seems like every time I talk to you, I learned a little bit more about Oakdale, and that's really great because, of course, Modesto, Oakdale, they're right there, right? They're like almost neighbors.
Yeah, we're buds. I was like, we've got like what, Riverbank, Escalon in between, but hey, we're all friends in here.
Yeah, and not to mention it's a really great drive going down there. I mean, I never hit traffic, at least the times I go, right? Because we're in the Central Valley too. So what's traffic? 3 cars that are just stopped at a stop sign.
It's either a tractor, like an almond track, like there's some almond shakers or something like that, or the freight trains. That's pretty much your 2 causes of traffic. Like I got stuck behind the tractor, which I've been late to work because of getting stuck behind tractors, or the freight trains, both. And I'm sure anyone in the 209 is like, oh yeah, they know what's going on. They know about those tractors and freight trains.
Oh yeah, especially the freight trains. Oh, let me tell you. Anytime I would go to Sherlock, right, for college, it seems like the train always wanted to pass by at that time, right? It's like, oh, great job, just when I got to go to class, and I'm gonna probably be running super late, or I'm gonna be literally running to class. Yeah, that's what's gonna happen now.
Love it.
Awesome. Well, again, yeah, thank you so much. I might invite you back on in the future too. I might be doing something for like the 50th anniversary, not the 50th anniversary. What am I? The 50th episode anniversary, or the 100th. I'm still kind of brainstorming ideas on what I could do, but I want to do something, where I bring back the guests and all that. So that'll happen.
I'm sure now that we'll hang up, I'll think of like a bazillion Oakdale stories too. I'll be like, oh yeah, I should have talked about this. So, I'm sure I'll have some good stuff. So.
Oh yeah, we'll have another round of Oakdale stories. Maybe maybe do like more guests from Oakdale. Maybe do some live shows with people from different towns and talk stories. Yeah. So yeah, I'm eventually going to incorporate some live shows because, as you know, I do live shows for my other
Oh,
podcasts. So, I think with this one, it'd be kind of cool. Have
yeah,
something like that. Cool. Well, take care, Lauren, and hope to talk to you soon.
yeah, we'll see each other at Jessica's thing.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to Jessica.
So once again, thank you so much to Lauren for joining the podcast today. It was really great to be able to talk to her about growing up in Oakdale and, of course, the Disney stories, which she has a lot. I mean, we could have done a whole episode on just the things that happen both in the park, in the store. I've heard a lot of stories, and she's always got a lot more. So anytime we have her on the podcast again, I'm definitely going to bring that up again because she knows a lot about Disney, and she's just really super knowledgeable about that. So of course that had to come up on the podcast here as well. And so it's really great the fact that she grew up in Oakdale and she came back to Oakdale, and she really does reflect what a lot of us who are from here, from the 209, regardless of what town, city you are from in the area, we always miss home. When you grow up in the area, you could move out, you could travel somewhere, but it's one of those things where you always have this area in mind, and you come back and it's a whole lot different when you go out. And we might not have what these big cities have, right? All the touristy attractions and all that, but there is something different about this area. And a lot of it is that, we might have cities when you compare maybe Modesto to Oakdale, but even though Modesto might be a little bit bigger, you still have that like local vibe to it. And, there's still things going on in downtown that are more smaller scale. And you don't really find that anywhere else. You can go to a big city and you might find, like things that might seem like they're from a smaller city, like, maybe a small restaurant and a mom and pop shop and whatnot, but it never truly does compare to what you could find in the Valley, because a lot of these places have been around for a long time, and people know each other by name. Certain businesses know their customers really well, right? Because they've established those connections with their customers and all that. So it's really quite different. And Lauren put it really well when she talked about different places in Oakdale and whatnot. So if you haven't been to Oakdale, highly recommend you go check them out. Not just, of course, when you're going on your way to Yosemite, but if you are on your way to Yosemite, let me tell you, it's the perfect spot to stop by while you're on your way there, or when you're on your way back. Check out one of the restaurants, check out the chocolate festival when that's going on as well. I mean, it's a really great place to stop by when you're on the way to Yosemite, or if you're on the way to Knights Ferry or Sonora. It's a really great place to check out there. And check out some of the places that Lauren mentioned. So as always, thank you so much again to everyone who takes the time out of their busy days to listen to my podcast. I really appreciate it. It's really awesome. I'm super excited to be able to do this podcast as well, because as I mentioned, I believe in my first episode, I do also do other podcasts as well, but I always wanted to do one that was centered around the area where I grew up in, because as I always say, there's always interesting stories that people who were born here or moved here have to tell to everyone. And I'm really glad that we can use this podcast to be able to tell those stories, and again, to encourage people who maybe aren't from this area to come visit us, and for all of us even who are in this area to get to learn a little bit more about the neighboring areas that are near the place where we live at. Just as I said earlier, every time I talk to Lauren, I learned something new from Oakdale. So it's really awesome to be able to use this platform for that. And so I hope that you are able to learn something new every time you listen to the show. And of course, as I like to say in every show, if you know someone, or if you are someone who would be interested in being on the show because you have a story to tell, please reach out to me on social media. Again, you can find the podcast at the 209 Journey on Twitter and Facebook. So send a message if you have something to share with us. That would be really awesome. And, we'll see if we can have you here on the show so you can tell your story about where you grew up at. So, well, thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day or night whenever you might be listening to this. And you will hear me next week here on the 209 Journey podcast.